17 years, 190,000 miles. When the MDX first came out in 2001, it was one of the first luxury crossovers out there. Well, honestly, just crossovers in general. With the all-new 2022 MDX rolling into showroom floors right now, let's see where Acura's flagship luxury SUV originally came from. So the MDX first came out in 2000 as a 2001 model. It actually came out 3 years before its close sibling, the Pilot. The first gen MDX is based on Honda's mid-size car platform in the early 2000s that was based on the Odyssey, Accord, Acura TL, and all the other mid-size Hondas of that time. These are actually known as the Honda MDX in other states outside of the US because Acura only exists in Canada and the USA. Back in 2001, there really wasn't a lot out there. Lexus had the RX 300, Mercedes-Benz had the ML 320, Volvo hadn't even come out with the XC90. The first gen MDX got light revisions over the years, but 2004 brought the biggest changes. Acura gave the MDX a slightly different front and rear end, and most importantly, a different 3.5-liter V6 engine which bumped power from 240 horsepower to 265. But all MDXs of this era had that same 3.5-liter V6, VTM4 all-wheel drive, and a 5-speed automatic transmission. Now this isn't new to anyone that knows anything about these early 2000s Hondas, but the 01 to 03 MDX's 5-speed automatic was known to be fragile. I definitely recommend getting an 04 and newer because those have an updated 5-speed automatic which are much more reliable, because this one is almost at 200,000 miles. This particular MDX belongs to a close friend of mine and his family. They've had it since 2004 and right now it has 194,000 miles on it. It's a little bit clapped and it's clearly seen some things over the years, but just look at how nicely it cleans up. This is a nice looking SUV. The touring package added little goodies like navigation, memory seats, a backup camera, optional XM radio, and these 17-inch alloy wheels. You'll hardly see a base model MDX, but they're out there. This one has the gray leather interior. It's perforated leather. The seats are really comfortable, really soft. That's something that I love about these early gen MDXs, and all the materials in here are nice and soft touch, as you'd expect. The seat is full power with even power lumbar. Some cars at this era did not even have lumbar adjustability at all. And you also have memory seats. You know, this doesn't have push button start or anything, but starts right up every time. Even after 194,127 miles, this thing still feels really nice inside. The cruise control, you actually turn it on and off here. VSA is their traction control and the fog lights. This has automatic headlights and rain sensing wipers for 2004. That's really nice. So this is the big thing about this car, what sold the touring model. It has Honda's built-in navigation system and their voice control, which actually works pretty well. But even if it is really old, look at how quick it is to punch things in. This is faster than, I'm gonna throw some shade, but this is faster than some newer VW head units or other cars' head units. It's just so snappy and responsive. It's really good. Something that I don't really like about these is that you need to use the head unit to do some of the major controls for the climate. It's like the fan speed is in here, the temperature is in here, the trip computer is actually in here. Wow, 12.9 mpg. That's pretty thirsty. But if I go back, there's a lot to go on in here for 2004. This is an actual infotainment screen back then. Then the radio, this has the Bose stereo, which actually sounds really nice. I love how the Bose system sounds in this. The bass is really nice. The sound is pretty crisp, especially for 2004. It really does show its age because this has a tape deck in here. Down here is the 5-speed automatic transmission. You can shift it in every gear from first all the way to 5th gear. And then when you put it in reverse, it has a backup camera. No guidance lines, of course, it's 2004, but still. And it's a decent quality backup camera too. This one also has heated seats, which on these early 2000s Hondas work really well. So this is where your childhood has really consisted for a lot of you, that your parents have had these. Just like the front, the quality of the interior is still very nice. Nothing rattles in here, or like if I press on any plastic, nothing creaks. I'm 5'9", and the driver's seat is in my driving position, and I have so much legroom. I can fit my feet under the seat. 3 people can easily sit back here. You also have a third zone of climate, which I think is very nice. These MDXs have a lot of space in them, and it really feels nice to sit in here. You also have a center armrest here with 2 cup holders, but no storage in there. But there are 2 map pockets over here. So the only side to get into the third row of the MDX is on the passenger side, because there's this lever here, which you just pull it, then the whole thing slides up. There's golf balls in here and tees, but it's not terribly hard to get back here. It's a lot easier than some modern crossovers, and I've spent a fair share of time in the third row of this MDX. But if I pull the seat back, which these actually recline too, I am honestly, this has more room than my 2010 XC90 that went right up against this car back in the early 2000s. I can fit my feet under the seat, and yeah, my knees are high up, but I am honestly comfortable enough that I could sit back here for like an hour. Headroom is decent. My head isn't touching, which is good, and I don't feel cramped. This is actually pretty impressive. Something that I don't understand is that the Odyssey of this time, because we had an 05 Odyssey, had a power tailgate. The MDX doesn't have a power tailgate, but neither did the Pilot. But there's a good amount of space back here, especially if you're someone that wants to use this for camping or just going on road trips. If you fold the third row down, which is really easy, there's a lot of space behind the second row. Then the second row can fold completely down too. It's a 60-40 split. And then there's also a little bit of storage underneath here as well. A nice thing about these older SUVs is that they didn't go for a sleek coupe-looking SUV. You know, the roof actually just stays normal, so you can put more stuff in the back of it, because new SUVs take up so much room because they make the openings so narrow. More and more people have been taking their crossovers and SUVs, and honestly, almost anything really, off-road. These MDXs use VTM 4-lock, which is also found in the Honda Pilot and the Honda Ridgeline. It works pretty well. These are primarily front-wheel drive to save fuel, but once slip is detected, it'll send power to the rear wheels and engage the VTM 4-ness. You can't lock the center diff like a 4-wheel drive, but if you put the car in either first, second, or reverse, you can engage the lock function, which acts like a simulated rear locker, because this car uses clutch packs in the back as much as it can lock the 2 wheels together. To add to that off-road ability, these have 8 inches of ground clearance, which is actually a little bit higher than other things like the RX 300 and the ML, but these are not the most off-road capable. So over the years, the MDX has had the same engine, but Acura has actually revised it in 04. So under the hood of this MDX is the J35A5. It's a 3.5 liter single overhead cam V6 with VTEC. It makes 265 horsepower and 253 pound-feet of torque, going to all 4 wheels with VTM4 and the 5-speed automatic. From 01 to 03, the MDX had the same 3.5 liter V6, but it was known as the J35A3. It made 240 horsepower and 245 pound-feet of torque. These are not known to be the most economical. I'd say on an average between city and highway, I'd expect about 17. So because I don't want to hurt this thing, I'm not going to push it too hard, especially because of that rear diff, but it shifts okay. You know, that's like half throttle. It shifts pretty smoothly. It just accelerates smoothly. I love the V6s in these. They're done really well by Honda. So let me just get up on here now. Yeah, you can feel the bounciness and softness of the rear end. even with worn out suspension, this still drives really nice. It's not, I mean, there's no bumps, but I would imagine it would be pretty floaty. But it's not loud, there's no thunks, clumps, or bumps in it. These handle well. These are not meant to be dynamic. It's just meant to be, I would say, nicer than a Pilot. And it really feels like that. It does feel nicer than a Pilot, the interior quality. And just the interior of the MDX just feels less industrial. The Pilot's interior is just more utilitarian and truck-like than this. This feels like you're driving a car, which is nice. It's very soft when you do the wheel like this. Wow, I would not feel comfortable at a high speed, you know, like kind of maneuvering around something or someone. I'd feel like it would tip because it rolls so much. But this still feels like a nice car. Of course, it doesn't feel modern like a brand new MDX, because new cars, everything feels completely different. But if you're looking at this for a first car or a daily or anything like that, this is a really good option. It is not the best on gas. That is one thing that I will tell you. This was probably, besides a 4Runner for me, this was actually right next to or right under the XC90 on terms of things I was looking to buy. So just like the RX 300, you really don't have to worry about things going wrong with these MDXs, especially if it's after 2004. Most of the stuff you have to worry about, or at least look for, is regular maintenance, like at 100,000 miles, timing belt and water pump. Every 30,000 miles, I do the transmission fluid. Depending on how your car shifts and if the mileage is kind of high, I would change it or wouldn't change it. It just depends. There's also been some power steering issues with these V6 Hondas. I'm not exactly sure why. I think either the pump goes out prematurely or the hoses start to rot, so they need to be replaced. But some of these have power steering issues. For example, if you hear one of these driving around and it's making a loud grinding noise like that's the power steering because it has no fluid in it. I would also make sure to change the fluid in the rear diff, because this one makes noise in the back when you take a tight turn. I also think these are good for people around my age because they're easy to drive. The steering is light. These don't feel big. XC90, my XC90 feels like a big car. This doesn't. This feels like I'm driving an Accord or a TL.